Okay, Nick and Andy, let's focus on a huge game in the Champions League, especially for Liverpool as they head to Eintracht Frankfurt, trying to avoid losing 5 straight games in all competitions. I mean, I didn't think I'd ever really be saying that sentence, Nick, with Arne Slot at the helm, given how well it's gone in the first, year or so in charge. But there's actually a lot of pressure on Liverpool, right, to prove that this is a bit of a blip. They've lost a lot of goals by games by 1 goal. So there's not, a huge crisis and everything's okay, but this is going to be really difficult for them. And of course, they're still favourites going away to Frankfurt in the Champions League. But we need to see a big reaction, and not just from the players, but I think from Arne Slot as well, to see what kind of changes he makes tactically and personnel-wise to try and right some of the wrongs that have been really the similar situations and similar problems causing Liverpool so many issues so far this season.
Yeah, this is where if I were, a pundit overseas, I'd say something real controversial, like the worst thing for them is that they won the league. But if you could, because it's not the worst, it's awesome. They won but if you break it down, there's such if this were happening last year, the first year after Klopp, they'd be having questions about whether or not Slot could do it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I heard Arne Slot after the game talk about Florian Wirtz and how good he's been, which I agree. He's setting up chances that aren't being finished, and that an Isak or a Salah or a Gakpo are going to finish more times than not. And even in that last game, Gakpo could have scored a hat trick. But because they won the league last year, and because even as well as Arsenal has played, the top of the table is right there for them, I feel like they're kind of being, I don't want to say judged unfairly, but it's difficult to get a read on them. I think Wirtz is great. I think he's going to be a fantastic player for them as soon as they figure out how to use him. I don't think, Salah is going to go back to Ballon d'Or form, but I also don't think he's going to continue to be absolutely snake and confidence bit in front of goal. Like, this is going to work out for them. I'm not telling you they're going to win the league. I think I picked them to finish 3rd at the beginning of the year, but would we be judging them this way had they not won that title last year in such a surprising fashion?
Yeah, it's a great point, right, Andy? Because I think everything that we are expectation-wise for Liverpool is up here. And with the new players, given that Arne Slot, potentially, he tweaked quite a bit, but there was still a lot of that Jurgen Klopp side there, and a lot of the kind of just the mechanics and the instincts were kicking in for these players a lot last season. But now he's had a full pre-season, another one. Seems to be changing the idea of the team a little bit, and the balance is just off, right? I mean, when it comes to what's going wrong for Liverpool, what's your take? Because Nick mentioned there, Salah's been off, the finishing's been off. Isak, to me, has looked a little bit off as well, fitness-wise, so I would probably start Ekitike in this one, but it's just the defensive balance, a bit too gung-ho for me. I think Liverpool, they're almost getting a bit too carried away and need to control and calm down things a little bit and then rely on their quality to come through and win games late on like they did a lot last season. But what do you think's going wrong, mate?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time really putting my finger on it, because for the most part, for about 87 minutes or so of their games, they look pretty good. And then they have a couple of moments where they mismanage a situation poorly, or they get beaten a one-on-one. It typically seems to be happening on the left side of their defense, and I don't think it's Van Dijk. I think it's the Van Dijk-Kirkej partnership and figuring that out, and just after years of playing alongside Andy Robertson and the relationship and familiarity that they had over there, it felt like nothing ever came against Liverpool's left-sided defense, and now teams are able to get at it just a little bit more. So I think that maybe is a little bit of a weak spot right there. But then I look at some of the numbers, and they more than doubled up Manchester United in terms of XG. They more than doubled up Chelsea, or almost doubled up Chelsea in terms of XG, and they lost both of those games on late goals. And so I don't know. Maybe nothing's wrong. It does feel like the vibes are a little bit, off. When you've got a player who just had a season like Salah did last year, and then suddenly he's just kind of not producing anything, there certainly is something there, but it's hard to put a finger on it at the moment. I do think they'll be fine in the long term. It's a little interesting and funny that they're kind of having some of maybe the midfield and balance problems this season that we thought would be a huge problem for them last season when it was Klopp's players and slot system, and it seemed to work just fine to begin with. So, yeah, I don't know. they're certainly not in trouble,
Yeah.
but they're not playing up to, to the expectation, and what they've spent to assemble the squad.
Yeah, and you're right about the midfield issue there, because I think there's been similar theme in terms of what opposition players and managers are saying after beating Liverpool recently. It's, oh, we went a bit longer, more direct. We, overloaded down the flanks because we knew that there's going to be space and opportunities there. So Nick, there is almost like a blueprint emerging here on how to beat Liverpool, which again, we said they played really well for the majority of these games. So you're kind of hesitant to say, oh, they've got to go away from everything they're doing under Arne Slot and totally change things. That's probably not right, but they certainly need to maybe tweak that balance. And like I said, I feel like it was working so well for the majority of last season with the extra control. They were boring in a lot of games, but winning a lot of games in a boring fashion by just keeping the ball and not giving up big chances. And at the moment, it just feels like they're chucking everything out the window and just saying, you know what, let's just go for it. Let's go for the win in every game. And Slot said he was going to do that. And that's great, but it's just not sustainable. You're going to just leave yourself open like they have done and lost some of these close games. So I just wonder with Liverpool how dramatic the response should be to these sort of defeats and performances, because as we all said, it's not really that bad, is it?
Well, would they be able to be bypassed if they had better fullbacks? And it's funny, a team has a mystique. Liverpool have a mystique. They're one of the biggest clubs in the world. And so I saw an article headline this week, and it said, why Trent Alexander-Arnold's absence looms so large for Liverpool. And I thought to myself, like, is it Trent Alexander-Arnold's absence, or is it the fact that they don't have a right back? Like, sometimes you lose a player and you don't replace him. It doesn't mean that the guy who left is going to solve that wound. And so in Frimpong, you have a guy whose metrics compare favorable with actual wingers. And in Bradley, you have a young guy who might not be ready for the role. And you flip to the other side. I think Kirkes might be better if he wasn't having to play every game. Why did they buy Kirkes? Well, I think it's primarily because Andy Robertson got a little bit older and wasn't able to play every single game. So work him in a little bit. And when you add in the stresses that have been put on their center backs, again, I'll say this again, not just as a Newcastle guy, maybe spend a little less time recruiting Isak and a little more time getting that Guehi signing over the line. I think that their midfield is, Szoboszlai is their best right back right now.
Yeah,
he's one of the better center midfielders in the world, and he's their best right back.
Yeah, it's really interesting. In terms of Frankfurt, Andy, a quick word on them. Obviously, they hammered Galatasaray in the opening game of the Champions League, and then they were hammered by Atletico Madrid. So a mixed bag for them so far. They are one of the great sort of production lines in European football now, where players go there. Ekitike, obviously being one of them, go into Liverpool for big bucks, and so many others. Marmoush, Kolomoane, list goes on, especially in terms of forwards in recent years. So this season, looking at them, very exciting. They go for it in games. They concede a lot of goals. Probably not the kind of team that Liverpool would want to be facing right now, because Frankfurt will have a go, have nothing to lose, and this will probably turn into a bit of a basketball game again for Liverpool.
Yeah, I think that's what Frankfurt want, certainly in this one. And I don't think Liverpool want to get drawn into that, because, again, when they have been in their best moments this season, it's been in controlled, close games and managing those situations early on. And they had 5 games that they won on the late goals. But they're going to be pushed, I think, in this one. And anytime you come up against a team like a Frankfurt, Brighton would be the example in the Premier League, where there's just such a clear philosophy in the way that the club plays, not even the team, because the team is going to change, but the club is going to remain the same. Always a little bit wary, though, of doing any shopping in the transfer market at some of those clubs, because there have been a lot of players that have, overperformed at those clubs and then gone elsewhere and just really fallen short.
Yeah. Nick, do you think Liverpool are going to fall short in Frankfurt? Or do you think they're going to get a job done and get back on track, prediction-wise?
No, I do think they're going to get the job done, and I think it'll be a bit of a show. Frankfurt have had a 6-4 game in recent memory, a 4-3, and they're just coming off a 2-2 draw. Jonathan Burkhart has replaced Hugo Ekitike to some degree. He has 6 goals in his last 6 games. So I would bet on, wouldn't bet. This isn't, but I think they're going to score a goal at least. But I think Liverpool triumph 2-1.
2-1. I'm going to go something crazy and just go 4-2 because I think it will be tight and then back and forth, and then Liverpool will just turn on the Jets light on and win this game and get a much needed win just to calm things down. Andy, what do you reckon, mate?
Yeah, I'm thinking 3-2 along the same lines of what you've got there. Is I think Liverpool are going to have to, maybe they have to score their way out of these struggles right now. With as much attacking talent as they've got, maybe they just have to win a couple games by sheer force of scoring goals, and that will get them just back on steady footing again.
Let's see if Liverpool can get back on track against Eintracht Frankfurt in the Champions League. Head over to Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com. We have you covered for that big midweek game in the Champions League.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host of NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. And for even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock.